trying to interrupt me to put me off. Okay, how's that? Is that better? Okay, terrific. Our stats show that you lose something like 20 to 30% of your freshman year. Can I ask you, do you guys know how much you'd lose?
We're about a little under that.
A little under that.
18%.
Eight,
All retention.
so 18 to 20% you're losing. And that costs your institution money? So anything that actually drops that.
Recruiting investment to the transfer out or drop out.
Okay, so anything that reduces that saves your institution money and makes a business case.
Most cost-effective way to continue the college's mission is to retain students.
And do you all feel that way? Do you all see that happening in your institutions?
100%.
Any higher than 18%? Can we build it up a bit, make my stuff look better?
We're 19, 20, probably.
Okay, so it's about 20%.
Yeah.
Okay. By adding personality assessment information to the standard academic achievement information that you already have, admissions can make more informed decisions, improving acceptance rates and reducing dropout rates. In the demo, you'll see that Catch Persona can match personality to graduate programs, providing the student with better career planning, and the university can increase the student's academic success, resulting in higher graduation rates. One of the greatest assets of your university, something that we in England are just beginning to learn, is your alumni. You can only really solicit successful alumni for endowments. And most people are quite, I'm trying to think of the correct word, they look upon their university period with a good deal of goodwill, which is why probably your endowment system is so successful. If you're delivering people who are more aligned to success based on their individual personalities and preferences, you're going to downstream increase your endowment flow. Missing from the list of this slide is benchmarking. It's missing because it's very difficult for universities to do this without the right tools. Using Catch Persona for your admissions, you will have the personality profile for every freshman who enters your university the next academic year. This means, at the end, you can look at the profiles for the students who dropped out to discover what personality flags indicate possible dropouts to reduce future dropout rates. So not only can we predict how an applicant is going to fare based on their major selection, we can also look back at historic data, now that you have this data, and start finding trends in order to look out for future students, whether or not they match any of those trends. But it's not just a binary set, is it? There must be the feeling that if you were able to understand where the university was failing the student and how you could help the student, you could actually convert that student from a dropout to being a graduate. And that's another element of having this data. So you can see where it went wrong. Okay, next slide. Eureka is our personality recognition product that I will show you in a couple of minutes, assuming that the camera works. It's a SaaS product, but it can be integrated into your existing admission systems and processes. We can do that via API, and provides you with a totally new set of decision information that is currently just not available to you. We offer 5 psychological tests for different perspectives of an applicant's personality. Also applicant to the graduate program matching, and we perform it with a percentage ranking. Ultimately, Eureka provides an unbiased, consistent, and scalable tool at a per student price point that we hope you can't pass up. I'm now going to run to the demo. Do you have any questions? Do we do questions at this point?
It's your presentation. What's up?
Any questions?
Where have you used this?
We have created the data by testing 200,000 people. We generated 5 million facial morphology maps. It created a huge amount of data endpoints. We use it in recruitment currently, and we're also doing it in career planning, career management within the corporate sector.
Can you take any photo? Does it have to be with your camera? Can you take a picture off my Facebook profile and we can generate it?
Well, we could do it, but it's not going to be nearly as accurate.
Anthony, you're based in the UK, right?
We're based in the UK.
How does GDPR
Oh yeah, that's a good question. Okay, so European standards on privacy, I think, are a couple of years ahead of American standards on privacy. You're all probably familiar with GDPR. Well, we're GDPR compliant, so we do need to be compliant to a higher standard. We can not personalize. We can tailor package to the individual client's cybersecurity needs. Does that answer the question?
Do you actually store the data?
The data is stored in a database. We can, obviously, you can elect, well, you can clear out the database, in other words. So for your particular applicants, they're obviously held in separate containers within our database. You can clear them out. What we would say is you probably want to anonymize them and take out the personal data and use the readings downstream in order to discern future trends or past trends.
How would you address there's a potential for bias if people who have darker skins, would you want to eliminate?
I'm very pleased you raised that point, because most of the time, certainly with DE and I, what we found with recruitment is that there is something called unconscious bias and there's something called machine or training bias. Because we didn't use old models, and actually sitting in this room, we're all sort of a similar, well, basically it's old data, isn't it? So we didn't use old training models, old data, regurgitated data, 200,000 sample was on a fresh study that was funded. So that gets rid of machine bias. So we probably excluded as much as we can any training data bias. In terms of personal bias, we're not looking at their ethnicity, at their gender, or indeed neurodiversity, which accounts for 10 to 15% of the population, according to your definitions. We're judging on personality. At our point, what we're doing is we're giving you data on people. We're giving you a match, which you'll see, hopefully, if the camera works. We can certainly see it on the laptop. It's pretty clear of bias, and it's a provable audit trail as well. Remember, we're running billions of data endpoints. Does that answer your question? Good. Any other questions at this point? Do you want to see the demo? Yes? Okay. Okay, so I'm sorry, Brian. I need to end show here. And I need to go into, oh, it's an Apple. I hate Apple. Any chance you could put me onto the internet, please? Thank you.
Either you love them or you hate them.
Yeah.
50-50.
I don't particularly like Microsoft.
I'm an equal opportunity offender. Let's see, you want incognito or you want?
No, I'm good with normal.
Normal. Chrome, okay?
Yeah, Chrome is great.
All right, let's see if I can get you to a new window, and can I move this window over here? But then you're not going to be able to drive from here. So hold on. I got too many windows open on my Mac. You figure? Yeah, it's a Mac user. Now I can't see how to bring it back. See? Am I there yet? Do you want to do it here? Let's see. We were talking about this earlier, right? Are you going to need to go back, or you just need to go?
No, I just need to.
Let's go. Change to entire screen. So let's do that. All right. So now you should be able to type it.
Do you think it's picked up the camera?
I don't know.
Can you go onto something that's a camera? Oh, we'll try it. What the hell? Don't worry about it.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it live.
Oh, brilliant. Okay. And is caps lock on? Yeah. Okay, great. Thanks. Okay. Gentlemen, when you're ready. So as part of the student application form that you, the link that you send to students, we generate our own separate link so you can include it within your existing application form. You'll see how that works momentarily. So I'm just going to put my student name in, which is Anthony. I'm going to use a different name because there are lots of Anthony Silvers in here. I'm going to put an email address, which is no.
It's too small for you guys all to see all my autocomplete stuff within.
Where's the?
All my passwords. It's okay. We got it recorded. You can't see this.
Uh,
Oh, that's right. It's on there. Great. Thanks, Lance.
It'll be on YouTube forever. YouTube zoom in. Yeah.
Okay. Number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We've allowed for an alternative number. Again, as part of the application form, we can grab this data via API from your existing systems. Next, address.
I'm just hoping my wife doesn't text. The text box.
Be upstairs ready, my angel, yeah.
You're on your extended.
Okay.
So you should be good.
So we're going to do California, zip code 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Select a country option, say France. At this point, for GDPR purposes, we get them to agree to the use of catch persona as well as with the terms and conditions. At the bottom of the page, we tell them exactly what we're going to do. We're going to use catch persona to create an accurate personality profile. Once authorized, we'll take 6 rapid-fire photos using the camera on your device to create this profile. Once we've created the profile and we've converted it into a matrix of 195 different values, all of which are mappable onto one of 5 personality models, we delete the image. There's absolutely no need for us to retain the image, which is expensive anyway, to store. Well, it's not that expensive these days, but it's inefficient. We don't need it. It's also a very strong privacy point. If I hadn't have ticked these 2 boxes, I wouldn't be able to go to the next page. Okay, I'm not going to save it. It now gives me what I call a shout screen. It's going to take a passport photo, so you've got to be patient. If any of you gentlemen have tried to take a passport photo recently, it's not easy, so it needs to be properly framed. Allow this while visiting the site. Would like to access the camera. Allow. Ah, brilliant. We're there.
Anthony, you can do yourself, you want to do a volunteer?
Come on. Come on, big guy.
Is it using your camera?
It's using the laptop.
It's using the laptop, so it's not yours, it's that one.
Doesn't
Get
matter.
into the industry to find out if you should.
You need to take a passport photo, Tom.
Say again?
You need to take a passport photo, so you need to keep your head straight. You need, sorry, it's the laptop, so you need to be quite close up.
Do I need to smile or just?
No,
Nothing.
nothing. When you're ready, click the capture. You'll hear 6 clicks,
Okay.
and then the screen will change.
Okay. Is everybody looking at this while I'm doing it?
Yeah, we can all see you.
Get a good picture of it.
The internet's watching.
There we go.
Whew. That was pressure.
You passed. You passed. Okay, at this point we ask you to select a major. So, one of 2 majors. So, someone want to give me a major?
Butcher.
Sorry?
Undecided.
Undecided. Agriculture.
Food science. I think food science.
Agriculture.
Oh, we have all of the F1PO, F1POD. Is that the system that you guys use to calibrate majors? Obviously not. We put in 174 different majors, and we can add to it, so it's not a problem. We have a psychologist on staff. So do you want to go with food science?
Anthony, question. So, based on your picture and the major, does it tie, like the output, does it tie it to the major? So maybe we do.
I'm not going to spoil the. I'm not going to spoil it. I'm not going to spoil it. You'll see momentarily. So I'm going to put another one in, and I'm going to put B for business.
Yeah. Should we be I guess the question is, should we be picking majors that are more in line with what we think or does it not matter?
I thought it would be cool to see, see how
It will
ties
tell.
it.
You'll see. So I'm going to do cognitive science and bio, because I don't have a mouse and I can't scroll down. But there are 174 majors in here, and I'm just going to press next, and it's going to do its magic. There's your report. Now, what it's done is it's mapped your first choice. Oh, that's just saving it on our server. It's mapped your first choice, which is always green, and I think that says 66% match. Your second choice, which is cognitive science and biopsychology, is a 68% match. It's come up with your recommended choice, which, wait for it, Todd, you would have done really well in family and consumer sciences. 73%. We also, how do I scroll down with this? Oh, I presume like this, do I? Yeah, okay. Underneath, we do a statistical analysis. Why? Because your match normally lies within about 50 and 78%. So what you're really interested in is the quartile that the student sits in. Obviously, we haven't loaded too much data into the system, so it's really hard. Quartile 4 is pretty damn good. Quartile 1 is pretty, well, let's put it not so good. The recommended major, you would probably go into the 4th quartile, so you'd be in the top, and you would have a chance of graduating cum laude, if not cum magnum. Second choice, you're right, it should be a second choice because it's in the 2nd quartile, it's below the mean. First choice, which I made by the way, was food sciences. You wouldn't do too badly if you went with your food sciences. So what this is really doing is it's telling you how well the student's likely to do in their selection. And why is that important? If your experience is anything like my experience, when kids go to college, they've got absolutely no idea why they're going and what they want to do. They're thrown into the deep end. You have to make a decision. Now, in the UK, our education system is we specialise in 3 subjects before you go to university, whereas yours is a far more broader education. So at least when we go to university, we have some experience of the subjects that we're going to study in some depth, which your system doesn't provide. You get a lot of parental pressure. There are a lot of kids whose parents want them to go to a particular university and maybe study a particular course. And the kids not having a viable alternative will probably give in to the pressure. So this is all going on in the background. And that goes some way to describe the 18 to 20% dropout rate. Okay, let's look at the second page of the report. We actually run the report. We run your stats against 4 psychological models. The most important one is Ocean. Ocean is the gold standard of personality. It's there for your information. Unless you're a psychologist, I suspect there's not much you can do with it, which is why what we do is we give you leadership and interest predictions. I'm not going to read it out to you. Can you guys read that? I don't know how to enlarge on this. And maybe, Todd, you don't want us to know. Are you okay with this? Okay.
Should just look attention Zoom, or it should just be a.
Perfect. Thanks. Okay. So leadership and interest predictions. Would you say that's relatively accurate? Anyone who knows Todd? Because Todd can't give us an unbiased opinion.
There's no way you got 1460 on your SAT.
No. That data is obviously it's dummy data because we don't know your SAT. But the point is we could grab that data. So you've got the soft data and the hard data, the stats data as well, all on one place.
I think it's pretty good. Can you see that? I mean, that.
Yeah.
Hang on. Okay, finally, now this is important in the college context. How do you handle, because I put my name in, I didn't put Todd's name in, that's why it says Anthony. How I handle social situations, or how Todd handles social situations. And we also give a gentle nudge as to how you can, what things you should work on. In other words, we show things that you're really compatible with, and we also say maybe a little bit of work on some of this. Maybe Todd is slightly more introverted, I don't know. How you relate to others. How you approach work and responsibility, and how open are you to new ideas? Now, we reckon we get it about 85% right. So what we're saying to you is, don't use this, don't rely on this alone to make your decisions. This is information you never had before that you can now factor into your decisions. At the end of the day, if you've got an applicant with really good academic statistics, you're going to accept it. We get that. If you've got that same kid who's not quite sure what they want to do, you can offer some sort of counselling, some sort of discussion as to how best to use their potential, how best to bring out their potential. But also you've got a lot of people who are going to be applying who may well drop out downstream because they just can't do the work, or there's not enough engagement potential there. That's it. Now, sorry, that's not it. Let me show you the administrators.
So while you're looking that up, can you go back and select different majors
Yeah.
to see if they're better matches?
Yeah.
Without taking additional pictures?
Yeah, once we have that data, we can reprocess that data into our models any number of times. So, for instance, downstream you've got career counselling. They're going to be interested in different things once the students they're in place.
Right.
So yeah, we can develop any number of new reporting structures using that same data, and that data is good for 10 years. Maybe slightly less given the age of these kids. Yeah? But certainly you won't have to do it more than once. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly log in so you can see from the administrator's perspective. Okay. Oops, yeah. That. We would say probably 16 is too young, depending on the maturity of the physical maturity of the student. Right. Okay, never. Okay, this was my. So what I've got here is I can look by candidates, got all my candidates, got a number of different search filters. Has some stats here at the top. If I go in there, it gives me my matches: 69% food science, 68% cognitive science and biophysiology, and 73% of family and consumer. I can open the report again. It takes a while to build the page, which is now being worked on so that it does it quicker, and you've got the same report. Yeah. If I go back, how do I go back in this? Yeah, okay. I can also look at majors. So if I want to go into, I've forgotten the one that we chose, doesn't matter. If I go into general agriculture. If it's green, it's first choice. If it's red, it's second choice. If it's orange, it's a recommended choice. So you can go into any major and see your candidates. You can see the ranking on the left-hand side. It gives you the information that you never had before. That's it.
I have a quick question. I'm just curious, have you had discussions with lawyers about this? I mean, I can see some issues that you're gonna run into over time. If you picked candidate A over candidate B, because I ran your system, right? You have to defend that, which by the way, you would have done the same personally, right? You would have said, I picked
Yeah,
candidate
exactly.
A over B, personality-wise, that's part of the interview, right? But now you're using a system, so you're gonna have to be able to say, I'm just curious, over time, by the way, this is AI in general, right? We're gonna be running through this with everything in the AI world, but I'd be fascinated if you had conversations with some lawyers on this, because I guess they're gonna have some opinions.
We have had conversations with lawyers about this. Remember, in the UK,
Okay.
the situation is you're using this as some of the data, not all of the data, and you would use this to define who you're going to interview. So you have various different stages. If we were turning around and saying, based on all of this data, you must pick this person, and you're not looking at anything else, you're right. We would stand out, that's potentially litigious. But if my understanding is correct, whereas SATs are standardized across the whole education system, I think GPAs aren't. I think GPAs, exactly. So are you suing schools for people who take decisions based on GPAs? It's really a very similar thing. Or at least that's the advice we've had so far, but that's obviously the advice we're seeking.
Well, that's a good point. Like, essentially, you're getting at like transparency. So how far does it go with transparency on?
Oh, you can give the information to the student.
No, I mean transparency, like in the model. Like, hey, you arrived at this output. Here's some of the assumptions that are built in.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like how you got.
I did ask Lance if he could print off the citations, so it's fully justified by psychological. So we've got to think about 5 or 6 pages of citations. Yeah, I'm pleased to say our psychologist is uber cautious.
The benefit of having the DTE community portal, when you log in again, it's free to get in, you're going to be able to access all this information. So the citations, going right underneath the catch responder, you're going to be able to see that in the library. You can grab all that information.
Do you have, has it been any interest in like employers using this for pre-screening or?
Oh yeah, we have it. We have clients who are using it in. We have a sister company called Talent Recognition.
Okay, that's.
And uses very similar process, so different reporting and different UX. So it's used for recruitment. And we're also bringing out sort of succession planning, career advancement, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I could see it, and we were talking about sort of how you hire into roles in cybersecurity. You don't want to hire somebody into being, a SOC analyst that's going to look at logs all day if they're extroverted and they like talking to people and they don't prefer being in a cube by themselves, right? So I could see the value of helping me sort of assess team composition and put people in right roles or something along those lines.
A lot of the most positive response has been around IT recruitment. Because you've got a number of people who'll qualify, but you don't know how they're going to work, and how they work is extraordinarily important, especially when you think that something like 20 or 30% of hacker fraud comes from within a company. We also have a client in the Middle East who is a domain expert on anti-fraud and fraud prevention that we're building a system for, which gives them that information as well. What it's trying to do is you have a jigsaw and you've got missing pieces. This helps you fill some of those pieces.
Anthony, we talked about this on our last call, but the lone wolf syndrome over here in the United States has become an issue, that they'll help identify some of those students that might be acting out. Are there ways that we can be able to possibly identify a personality trait in somebody that we have to pay a little bit more attention to?
Okay, so that's a really interesting question. There are two issues, there are two problems. First of all, there is a lack of data on these people. So if you haven't got that data to begin with, it's really hard to predict. What we can do is we can work with the existing data and get a better prediction model. But because we're generating that data the whole time, certainly we'll be able to map those people. I mean, if we could get access to people who have already been convicted of those sorts of crimes or similar crimes, then yes, we could come up with a pretty good map very, very quickly. So if we could have access to some of the people that your Department of Corrections are hosting, we could do that in double quick time. There'd be an awful lot of psychologists who'd be rather pissed, I think is the expression you guys say.
It would be interesting to have one of the universities do it from a research perspective.
For research, we're very interested in that. I mean, what this does is this opens the door on creating this data. So we can create it at scale, and that's really interesting. We'd love to look at pilot schemes with the university and with any of your psychology research departments to see if we can develop some of these apps. We're open to that as well. What we can't do is we can't look inside your head and say you're going to be the guy on the plane that you shouldn't be sitting next to. Okay. Thank you very much indeed, gentlemen, for your attention. Okay, let me just come out of this.
As you can tell, we're not really following the time schedule very well.
Yeah, I'm really verbose.
Brian passed off his keynote speech to allow everybody else to have a part of it. So I think you're the next one up. There is water in the back. Lunch will be here shortly. Please don't hesitate to use the restrooms, which is right around the corner.
Thanks, Brian.
You're welcome.
You're a lifesaver. Well, not quite.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm with you.
Being dramatic.
better than 0%. Because it enables them to have conversation. Someone is there that facilitates the conversation. If we could do something on the sign up for that.
So she'll take chunks of the portfolio.
She's good. It's definitely full target audience.
Right. There's things that you can lose just as fast as you can. There's things that you lose. Well, it's because we're all giving ourselves free slides for more numbers and characters. In 1996, there's so many weren't working across. These 10 stocks 20 years ago, $5,000. Guys, we're all going down the and it was all like Apple. Look around and see your because it's always like, oh my God,
Sorry. Well, welcome back from the short break. We're going to break right into the CEO of ATOPS. Mitch, appreciate you coming over here.
Thank you, Lance.
It's really fascinating on Broadcom when they acquired VMware. It was kind of completely out of left field for me. I didn't see that one coming. And then a couple months later, I was introduced to ACOPS and really realizing where EDI was going and some of the structure. And obviously with COVID, EDI became a little bit more. But I see security is an evolution. Back in the early 70s, we had mainframes, and it was easy to secure because everything's on the mainframe. Then Windows came out, everything became disparate, right? And then Citrix and other started bringing things back in-house. Now, what's going to be able to, and now we have applications everywhere, what's going to be able to bring us back in so we can actually have a good security environment?
Thank you, Lance, and thanks everyone for being here today. And Anthony, that's a great tool. And I was telling Anthony that I had this habit of looking at the face of the person whom I'm interviewing, and I kind of make up my mind that whether within like 5 minutes that I want to hire this guy or no. And at some point of time, I was struggling also that I kind of make that judgment too soon and not give enough chance to people. But I've had success stories where I looked at somebody, just based on their face value, I hired them. They've been there with us for 10 plus years. And then there are people, I looked at their face and I said, I don't want to hire this person, but I was desperate to hire somebody and I hired them, and struggle with those people, right? So I think with this database tool that it'll make my life definitely easier, and for sure for other employers as well. Right. So I want to talk about ACOPS for sure, but before that I want to talk about Kyoto University and talk about that. How did they help us evolve this solution. Like I said, that we met Kyoto University in 2000 around 2018, and they are the Japan's second largest university. They're one of the largest universities in Asia as well. 25,000 students, close to like 200 departments, and multiple schools within the university. The way they had set up their lab environments was like a typical setup. Physical labs, each department having certain number of PCs in the classrooms. Some of those labs were deployed using NetBoot. Some of their large lecture rooms for like 200 students can come and sit, but they were not allowed to use their personal devices because the university was not open to allow BYOD as such. And these were some of the challenges that they were facing in 2018 when they wrote their paper for next 5 years of ICT labs within Kyoto University. They realized a lot of students have got their own laptops, but they were not allowed to connect to the lab environments, especially during the lecture. The professor would want to have real-time access to the lab environment, and only the labs which were like suitable to kind of be delivered through NetBoot, they could do that, but most of the lectures they were not having access to real-time labs. They also realized that students will typically, when the semester starts, they will come in and attend the labs, but within a month's time, the attendance of the students will go down. So most of the students were not really attending these labs. However, the university had already spent money on setting up these labs, so there was a lot of money wastage that was happening. Also, students have to travel, and students would want kind of access to these labs, from their own laptops whenever they wanted, right? So a self-study kind of environment the university envisaged at that time. A lot of departments, pretty much like every department wanted a different image for their labs, and a lot of time they have to kind of struggle with the IT teams that if faculty want a particular configuration in the machines. I'm sure you guys are already facing those issues. I in fact read one of the press release by Citrix for a university in US, and they were claiming that the university was awarded the most innovative university by using VDI for their lab environments. And what I read through the press release was that earlier professors have to physically go and request the IT teams to set up their labs. The IT person will walk into a physical room, install the images through CDs or USBs, and how VDI has kind of transformed their lab environments. Now the faculty can call the IT or send an email that this is the image I want, these are the applications that I want. IT will go and set up the gold master, and then they will ask the professor to test. And then the professor will say, oh, you know what, this is not working in my lab. Can you change these configuration? I wanted a different version. This is not working. And so there was a lot of to and fro. And this is what they're saying in the press release as well, that now at least, it is happening over the emails, right? And I said, okay, fine. You have moved away from like a physical PC management to more of a virtual desktop management, but the faculty is still spending a lot of time going to and fro, with the IT teams, right? So, and that's the challenge that Kyoto University told us, that we don't want, our professors to kind of, go into this mode, with the IT teams. and we want to actually delegate creating their own gold masters, installing their own applications right at the faculty level, right? So a professor can say, I'm going to manage my own gold master image. And the professor may not have any understanding of the virtual machines or the virtual infrastructure that is running behind. Also, the professor should be able to delegate that task to a student and make them like a lab assistant, and tell the student that, okay, go and configure this gold master and make it ready, right? So a granular kind of delegation was like one of the key things that they were looking at. And of course, students coming up with ad hoc requirements of, for running AI, ML, kind of projects. Of course, this whole deployment of per department wise labs, which are highly underutilized, was costing university a lot. And they wanted to completely move away from buying and deploying PCs per department basis. And they said, we want to set up a shared service environment, which is managed by a small IT team, the underlying infrastructure, but the rest of the things should be delegated to the departments. And based on time sharing fashion, we want to have this small infrastructure to be shared across large number of departments. And then, of course, there were concerns about security, that how securely students can log in. They should have access only from the campus or from designated locations. There were issues that there were some licensed application which should be accessed only from, like, a certain number of devices. So all those kind of restrictions also they wanted. Now, before I go into like how did we help Kyoto University, I'm going to talk about ACOPS, that what we do as a company, right? So we are an Indian company. ACOPS stands for Access Operations, and our focus is to build technologies which will enable users to have access to applications and data wherever they are. Right, so we're based in Pune. Dubai is our first international office. We are an Asia-based company, so far. And I had never imagined that we would want to kind of stretch ourselves to do business in US and Europe, till now. And then we realized that, because of the Broadcom issues, because of the Citrix acquisition, a lot of customers are suffering right now. They want an alternative solution. And we said, okay, what is the best way to, come and serve the customers in the US? And that's where we met Lance and Terry, and we said, okay, we may not have the capital to set up all our operations in the US, but we can do that through channel partners. Let's say with Lance, with the help of Terry, and now we are working with TCS as one of our largest channel partners based in the US, right? So we have started now some engagements in the US, to set up our sales operations here. We're also now part of Reliance Group, which is the largest company of India, but they are among the top 5 telecom companies also. They invested in us, 1.5 years back. And their vision is also to take VDI to consumers, right? So we are actually right now converting the set-top box, the TV, as a thin client, so that we can deliver VDI and the cloud compute to every consumer in India right now, especially because the cost of the PC is still very high for a lot of Indian population to buy. Right, so what we do as an overall solution is, like I mentioned, that just one single technology is not enough to deliver all type of apps, right? So you definitely need something which will enable connectivity, right? A secure connectivity, and the new name for the VPNs is ZTNA gateways, right? So we've got a ZTNA gateway. We do layer 4, layer 7, layer 3, connectivity with a lot of zero trust architecture based, functionalities. Then we got our own complete identity access management, MFA, SSO, features built into the solution. Of course, we do a full-fledged virtual apps, virtual desktop, components. We got our own endpoint hardware devices as well, right? And that was basically to bring in this whole ecosystem that if you're buying our software, you would want to deploy, let's say, thin client device, but a Dell HP would not, by default, bundle our client software into their images. So we build our own hardware device endpoints, as well. Although there are some endpoints from HP and device which now has support for us, and we build our own endpoint management solution as well. So you can remotely manage those endpoints, right from thin clients to Windows, Mac, and Android and iOS devices as well, right? So we got this full spectrum, of the end user computing solutions. This is, a package software suite, right? So you can deploy that on the infrastructure that you provide to us. For India, at least, we have started doing some DaaS services, but let's say for you, everything will be packaged. You can deploy on the infrastructure of your choice. Right? These are some of our customers. So we are industry agnostic. And the only industry-specific solution we have is the solution for education, which I will talk about, the high lab solution, right? But we service today the largest banks in India. We touch almost 93% of all insurance companies in India today. We service Indian Air Force, Indian Army, you know, Indian government, right? Various departments, right? So as I talk about the issues that Kyoto University mentioned to us, right? So these are kind of summarized issues that I'm sure you have experience with, right? So that setting up ICT labs is high capex, you know, kind of expense, and then you need to continuously maintain, you know, those labs as well. There is a lot of inefficient utilization because not everybody is using those labs all the time. And the interaction that students have these labs, you know, I don't know if you have, you know, infrastructure to track that, but a lot of universities we have spoken with, they don't have that infrastructure to track exactly how is the utilization of these labs, right? So that visibility, lack of visibility is an issue. And then finally, the learning environment, that students have to walk into a lab, access that lab within defined timelines. They cannot access the labs when they want it, from wherever, you know, they want it, right? So the whole learning experience is still very legacy, you know, with the traditional labs, right? And of course, the obvious choice is to go to VDI, you know, kind of environment, right? So where, you know, you deploy VDI from, let's say, Citrix, now Omnisa, and of course, you know, because it's all remote, so you would need secure connectivity, and if the users are going to be accessing this from their home or hostels or wherever they are, you would need some kind of VPN, which is typically, let's say, Cisco VPN or a Palo Alto VPN, and then MFA if you have deployed like Okta One Login, right? So these are basically what you're doing is, you know, just to deliver a lab environment, you are dealing with 3 different vendors, right? So you're still paying, you know, high money, right? I mean, it's not that this makes your ICT lab cost, you know, go low. In fact, it kind of increases your overall cost as well. The licensing is becoming more complex. That's the challenge that we are facing right now with Broadcom and Citrix acquisition. And then this is still very corporate way of, you know, doing labs, right? I mean, you cannot really give VDI console access to your professor to do the things on their own, right? I mean, it's all still very, very IT managed, right? And that's, I spoke about the Citrix case study. There's just no delegation, or the delegation is very minuscule, right? So we saw that issue with input from Kyoto University and build a whole stack, right? Of course, we provide the similar kind of stack, but coming everything from a single vendor, right? So now you see one single console, one single portal for end users to securely connect from wherever they are. So the whole VPN or ZTNA functionality is built in, IAM is built in, and then the VDI is there. So you get everything from one single vendor. But that was not enough for Kyoto University, right? They said we want, you know, something much more than that, right? So we build a special layer on top of this whole stack, which is the ICT lab, you know, virtualization stack, and we call it High Labs, right? So that's the name of the product. It is built for universities, and the key thing that we did was self-service and granular delegation, right? So that was the whole, you know, part of it. Now, so what happens, and I'll give a demo, you know, a live demo of the solution. So now what happens is there's one portal where faculty, students can log in. They can see what all labs are running right now for them. So we integrate with the LMS. We can pull in all the data that, okay, which student is part of which course, who is the faculty, and then they see the respective data only, right? Students cannot kind of access those labs whenever they want, unless the professor wants them to do so, right? So by default, a student will access the lab when there is a specific time schedule, you know, to access that lab. But if the professor has allowed self-study, the students can go and reserve that lab or access that lab at 7 p.m. wherever they are, right, from their own PCs, right? So everything is, you know, web-based access, so there's no IT involvement that is required. So now with the solution deployed, the students can first of all take those classes wherever they are, right? They don't have to really walk into a particular room to access the labs. They could use their personal devices because everything was, you know, browser-based. Now the professor don't have to think whether this application is going to support a particular, you know, physical PC or a particular environment or no. You know, everything was kind of, because virtual machine driven, so you can always, you know, change the configuration of the virtual machine. And the great thing was the professor themselves could do that, right? So they don't have to ask the IT, you know, to do that. And another interesting thing that we did was integration with AVD, right? So what we realized was Microsoft is, you know, of course, going and trying to promote more and more universities to use Azure. and AVD is available as a free, kind of VDI solution for universities. It's great, very easy tool to use. The only problem was, this whole concept of, time limiting, control over AVD, faculty is able to manage, those labs if they want to, those kind of controls were not available, right? So again, based on request from Kyoto University 2 years back, we kind of integrated our whole orchestration and time-based access with AVD, right? So now you use our console to deploy your labs, but they're getting deployed within the AVD control plane, right? So the students will go to the AVD access plane to access their labs, but they are managed, through our control plane, right? So what this enables you is, so if you want the students to have access to those AVD machines only from, let's say, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m., that kind of control is now available. So the provisioning of the VMs will happen like just before like 10 a.m. So 9:45 the VMs are provisioned. At 11 a.m. There's a cutoff. The VMs are deprovisioned, right? So you stop paying for the cloud cost, right? And this whole time can be adjusted based on the need of the faculty, right? So if they want to extend the class for, let's say, 2 hours, they can do that, right, from our console, right? So they don't have to call the IT that, can you please change the time schedule, right? Students can just request for that machine whenever, they want, right? So these are some of the universities, that we are serving today, and what they were doing, already, and then how we replace them, with the ACOP solution, right? And Japan definitely has been very progressive, on adopting, high labs and overall, the VDI technologies. India, we see the education sector is still very, very slow on technology adoption, right? I mean, because the cost of people is much more lower than the cost of the technology. Cloud is very, very costly for India, still. But that's a slow movement that is happening, and now we have started also, putting the product in Middle East region, right? So we have few Middle East universities also using that. To talk about few of the features, that we have, right? So one is everything is customized for universities, right? So we are not using any corporate terms right there, right? So we have lab admins, faculty, lab assistant, students, right? So it integrates with your LMS, right? So we can get the data from there. So you can do all of your course management on the console itself, provisioning, deprovisioning of the VMs, and you can have per lecture, kind of compute allocation, right? So each professor can have different configuration. Maybe the image is same, but the size are different, right? So vice versa, right? And these are self-healing labs as well. So what happens is, in a virtual infrastructure, if there's a problem, let's say a VMware could not deploy a VM is not getting an IP address, Windows is stuck, in the sysprep, process. There are a whole lot of reasons a VM will not come up, right? And what happens in that case is, typically in a VDI environment, professor will call IT that, okay, 3 students are not able to access their virtual machine, right? So what we did was, on the console itself, there is a button that says fix error, right? So if a student is facing problem, they report to the professor during the lecture, the professor clicks on a button that says fix error, and it will go and check, what is wrong, and then it will automatically fix, the problems as well, right? So trying to avoid the dependency on the IT team, as far as the lab management goes, right? These are all non-persistent. There can be persistent labs as well, but by default, these are non-persistent linked clone-based, virtual machines. We support Windows and Linux OS. There is support for multiple platforms, right? So VMware definitely, or now Broadcom's, gives you linked clones, but then we support all other, hypervisors as well, right? We have now recently added support for Proxmox as an alternative to VMware, right? And we are working now with Red Hat OpenShift. We'll get support for Azure Stack at CI as well, right? So you will have a choice of the platforms that you want to run, right? Right, and like I said, self-service, you can delegate it to any level in our solution. This is all web-based, right? So web-based access to labs. There is no software to be configured. From security perspective, everything is, TLS encrypted, multi-factor authentication enabled, role-based access, right? So, and then we give you full dashboards in terms of you can get any customized report, right? Especially, okay, how many VMs were running, every day? How many students logged in and accessed those labs? How long they were logged in? Which application they started within the VDI session, right? So you can get all of those analytics, and now you know that how good your investment is working right now. Yeah. Any questions before I go for the demo?
Which LMS systems do you integrate
So right now we have uh, there is a LMS called as Sakai in Japan that we have integrated with. We have looked at black box as well. So this is LTI enabled, right? So auth is there, so you can bring any LTI enabled LMS there. And for sorry.
Did you just say LTI?
LTI.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's for the access part of it. But getting the data out of it, we have built CSV files, right? So the LMS can export the CSV file, place it in a file share, and we can then read it, from there. Yeah. Okay, let me just. Right. So that's the launchpad. Let me just log in as a student right now, and we have enabled passwordless kind of functionality. So I got my phone registered, scan the QR code. Now this is the launchpad which will show all the resources that the student has access to. It does not have to be necessarily the labs, right? It can be a SaaS application, any of your private web apps as well, right? So all those resources are then listed here. This is all role-based access, so based on my identity, which course I belong to, right? What's my role? I can see these applications, right? So these are virtual apps, right? And then this is my lab. This is like a web application, which is published directly. Can be a private app, can be a SaaS application, right? And this is my lab environment. Let me start this again. People told me if this happens, launch your browser again. Right. So I've logged in as a student, and I can see that 2 of the labs are running right now. And these labs are, let's say this particular lab actually ends in next 1 minute, right? So I won't have access to this lab after 1 minute. And this lab is running, it ends in 8 hours, like a hackathon, kind of labs. But these labs could be, let's say, for for an hour as well, right? And I go ahead and just connect. Right, so while this is logging in, I can see that this particular lab is going to start in 23 hours, right? So that's like, next day, this lab is there. So I can see, what are labs I have access right now, what will run, some of the labs which have already expired, right? And this particular lab has finished now. Should be ending in a moment, right? So that's my virtual desktop. This is HTML5 based access, to the lab. We've got an agent based access as well, so you get the similar experience, but with an agent, especially if you're running, let's say, GPU kind of labs, right? So then we recommend using an agent based access, right? So then of course this image, whatever applications are available to the student, they can access that. Okay. Now, what I can also do is go ahead and make, let's say, this particular lab, which is ending now, this is ended now, right? And it is saying expiring, the time is over, but I want to continue accessing that particular lab. Now the time is over, so I can just go ahead and simply make a reservation for myself. And I want to say, I want to access the data science course lab. This was the lab, and this is, I'll say, my time. And I can choose at what time I want it. For example, I want it like right now.
We're on the 14th.
Sorry?
3 months from day, isn't it? For India?
Oh yeah, right. Okay, and so save. right? So now this lab is scheduled, for me, and which will say that, okay, tomorrow I can, when the time starts, I will be able to access that particular lab, right? So that's the self-service, part of it, right? So students have this kind of minimal access. They don't have anything, more than this, right? Now, if I log in as an IT admin or a lab admin, let's say, right? So now I've logged in as a lab admin who has more access. Now this is still not the IT admin. The IT admins have even a different console, where they can see, hypervisors and, individual VMs and a lot more, settings. This is still like, let's say this could be, HOD of a particular department who has been given access, right? So here I can see, of course, all details about the university, right from buildings, classrooms, whatever data I can pull from the LMS, we can show all that data here, right? And here I can see my gold masters, right? And if I have permission, I can go ahead and start this gold master and start changing the configuration, right? We've given some options like if I want to take a snapshot, right, before I make change, right, and if I want to have the facility to revert back, I can go ahead and take a snapshot, of the virtual machine from here. That's the only probably the technical knowledge a professor would need, that before you make a change, just go ahead and take a snapshot, right, from a virtual machine concept perspective, right? And then here I can see all my courses, and let's say data science, right? And then we can see that who is the professor, who is the teaching assistant, who are the students who are enrolled, and if I want to add any new student, I can definitely go and add the student from here. But I can definitely have this synced with my LMS, so anytime there's a change on the LMS, we can just pull in and auto-populate, all of this data, right? And then I can see which all labs are running, who is, how many VMs are running, and who is using which virtual machine as well, right? Of course, the complete user management and everything, all of those are possible. Then there are advanced settings, how I want to deploy, my VM. So there are a lot of customization that we did based on the requirements of Kyoto University, what practical challenges they saw, while running, these machines, right? So that's it. Any questions for me?
What drew me to ACOPS right off the bat was the way the efficiencies are happening within the IT team. Uh, we all know that the IT teams at the university level you're losing headcount, not gaining it, and we need to be able to make sure that the professors are not bogging you down. So allowing you to remove a lot of that programming to the professor and say, just like a book, hey, the professor says, I need to have this book. Well, I need these applications. Let the professor do that, not the IT. To be able to move that and have that efficiency was tremendously advantageous, and I thought it was just a very unique thing that DayCops brought. But I also like the facial recognition.
Oh,
We
okay.
don't have to show it today.
Okay.
But if you're in front of your computer screen, if somebody else walks in behind it, it would actually turn off your screen. So you're not going to have two faces. So to be able to have the lockdown your whoever's working on it, if it's a research or a test or whatever, it's going to have to be that person that's assigned to it. So um, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Definitely coming over here and presenting. Um, we look forward to a lot of future conversation. And anybody have any questions for me? Just glad to see some hands. There you go.
Real quick, you brought up GPU
Yeah.
usage, so we utilize VDI in our labs, and we're looking for an alternate solution as we look to transition away from on-premise to cloud-based, and so when you have GPU utilization, does that client-based, does that use local GPU on the device, or is there still
Yeah, it will use the cloud GPU only because it will use the GPU where the application is. Yeah. Correct.
So there is no need for the client, really. Everybody can do it HTML5, like straight
Yeah,
out of the
correct.
LMS.
I mean, HTML5 will deliver a decent performance for GPU apps. So that's why we recommend to use the agent, which is available like a installer. Students can do that on their own as well. And the agent will always deliver better performance for GPU workloads. Yeah. But it works in HTML5, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Have you thought about any integrations for proctoring software?
Not yet, but that integration should be possible, absolutely. Yeah. We do have our own, let's say, facial authentication solution. We can monitor if the same student is sitting in front of the PC accessing VDI, and if there are two students coming in, it'll lock down the VDI, right? So that feature we have, but we don't have more sophisticated features as such, like looking at the eye movement or if the student is speaking. Yeah, but integration with that should be possible.
What about the opportunity of having a CEO that recognizes a problem and how to address it? And I'd just like to bring this over here to the States. We'd appreciate it.
Yeah, and we are happy to customize. I mean, that's how, like I mentioned, Kyoto University, it's all their roadmap that we implemented, and that's how the product was built, with their input. So for sure, we'll be happy to customize anything that you would have.
So I think I'm not understanding the infrastructure quite. Is ACOPS riding on top of the existing hypervisor? So you have to have VMware or
Yeah,
Nutanix or something already running.
that's right.
And ACOPS is kind of this nice interface to
Yeah.
then run your labs. Okay, I just want to make sure I understood that.
That's right.
So we're not getting rid of Nutanix or VMware or whatever.
That's right.
This helps us manage it.
Yeah, correct.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
What you're getting rid of is, let's say, Omnisa Horizon View and Citrix Xenapps and Desktop. Yeah. Or let's say AVD. Yeah.
So is this a managed desktop as a service?
So in US, we will look at partners who can do that. We don't intend to provide that as a desktop as a service in the US yet. We do have some customers in Middle East where we are managing, we are providing that managed desktop as a service. But at least it works from, geographical kind of closeness perspective. So here, if we work with some partner, for example, TCS, let's say, right? So TCS is interested in taking our platform and provide desktop as a service. Right?
I don't think TCS is prominent over here in the States.
Yeah, right.
Is anybody working with TCS?
No, that's the first I've heard of it.
TCS is probably the largest IT.
They're the largest system integrator, yeah. And we've just replaced Citrix for them for close to 600,000 users. So the whole company now is on our platform, moved away from Citrix.
They have a whole education department over here in the US, and I think it's more in the South and Northwest, that they're actually buying buildings for universities.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, thank you.
Randier's coming up here. Some of the challenges I've seen in the world, and goes down the path of the data encryption. You have structured and unstructured data. And Randier, we're going to focus on
data protection.
both structured and unstructured.
Unstructured, mostly.
So they're actually working on a platform that can handle both structured and unstructured. insight on where all this stuff has evolved from and where it is today, technically.
Maybe the kicker is, so it's up here.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Before I get into the most boring topic of the world, that is encryption, I'll warn you, I'm glad I'm before lunch at least. You won't get such a boring discussion. Want to do after lunch? Definitely not. Anyway, it's a very important one. So I'm Randhir Shinde. I'm founder CEO of this company called Galaxy. Although I'm the founder, but this company belongs to a group which is led by Robin Toombs, who is in US. He's quite a major shareholder with Bally's Casino Group. And he runs another company called YOT, which is one of the largest digital identity and age estimation software used by Meta and almost all the major social media sites which now need age estimation and identity verification. So what do we do at Galaxy? We protect data. And why did we start this company or this product was a very interesting situation. Edward Snowden, when he left, or you know the story about him. Well, the big issue was who controls your key controls your data. And that's still now the biggest problem. When you say you need to protect your data, what does it really mean? It means your digital assets, if you're trusting it is with Microsoft or Google or Amazon, you rely on them to protect your data. You say, right, I don't care, they're protecting our data. And you all know last year, I mean, there are a lot of incidences, but the most recent one last year, the big one was with Microsoft, where Microsoft's keys to their fort was compromised, where in effect your federal government emails were compromised. So effectively what you are doing is you are relying on third party to secure your data, and you're just closing your eyes and saying I'm complacent and I've become complacent and I don't care. So what we did at Galaxy is we turned the model, and that's the thing we did, is we created a platform, and this platform gives you control of your encryption keys. So keys are with you, not even with Galaxy, not with Microsoft, not with Google. They are with you in your control. And having that platform in place suddenly changes the game, because now you can have your data anywhere in the world. I can have my file with Lance, who is on a vacation on his laptop. He's got a confidential file. I don't even need to touch his laptop to revoke that file. I can do it remotely because I hold the keys. I control the keys. So we built this platform. We built multiple times. We broke, built it again, and then we got the right model in place. The first thing we did was we got accreditation from, if you see the first logo over there, second logo, the NCSC, which is effectively a spy agency, I would say, in UK, which comes under GCHQ. And it took 18 months to get this accreditation, which basically meant our encryption was not penetrable. So they couldn't break unless you have the key. And the only thing was we separated the key architecture completely to where the data is stored. And that platform became really powerful. We started then approaching customers and said, look, we've got this amazing platform. Would you like to use it? And the answer always came no, because nobody wants to buy a platform. Everybody wants products. You know, platform is good, it's powerful, but you need products on that. So we started building products, which I'll show you in some time. But the platform became the entire fabric of data protection. And it protects your data in all forms, in creation, in transmission, and store. It'll protect. It'll protect it in a way where you control who has access, can they print, can they view, all the rights management, everything is controlled just with the key that you have. Okay. Eventually, just recently, actually last year, you see the logo over here, AUKUS, which is a joint program, naval program between US, UK, and Australia, which was for the submarine project, but now it's grown quite big. They have Pillar 1, Pillar 2, and they have one of the most complex and the most difficult requirements for data protection called NNPPI, which goes way above official secret classification. And we were the only product that got classified, that got certified for that. And they're now using GE, is an American company. They're using that to share files with DoD, MOD, and Australian military. So that's where the data protection plays really important in terms of, if you consider Galaxy as a product, we are independent of network, devices, and application. And when we say that, we are not dependent on Microsoft to control your access rights. We are not dependent on any network or any devices. It just encrypts. Once it's encrypted, it's simple. The challenge that comes after encryption is user experience. And we face a lot of resistance. The minute we say, oh, we've got a product, it's fantastic, but you have to press a key to do this, and you have to do this, and you have to do that, there's a lot of resistance from users. So that's another bit which we worked on really hard, is making the experience completely seamless. And I'll show you in some time how easy it is. Making it easy for an end user, where it becomes second in nature just to use encryption and ensure your data is protected, is what we have achieved in this. Okay. I can't disclose all the customers, but these are some with whom we have got an agreement we can disclose. But you can see we've got Department of Education in UK, which is using it heavily at the moment. They are using to send large files via email to around 60 universities, which require some sensitive data to be exchanged every Friday. And they're using Galaxy from last 4 years. We've got into critical infrastructure now, which means we don't have to do all tendering now. We are out of that. The other one is Ministry of Justice, which is again a UK government agency, which is using it heavily for sending confidential data between all the departments. In terms of education, we've got UCL, and University of Oxford is quite interesting. They came to us during the research on the vaccine of COVID, and they don't admit, but they were breached by Russians, and you'll all know where the antivirus got leaked from. So that's when all things started moving. But the biggest challenge was sharing files, and these files were massive, and using Microsoft or using any other SharePoint or Citrix was not working, because all had dependencies on the network, and we were the only ones which made it independent. So we got University of Oxford over there. Apart from this, we've also got military using it, and some secret service of some countries, again, which I can't disclose, but it's been used heavily in those kind of environments. In terms of product suite, we have got 6 over here, and I'm going to just go briefly. I won't go into details, because each business or organization has different needs. Some of them require a situation where they have to comply with, let's say, HIPAA or FERPA. I mean, I think FERPA is what education over here has to comply. I don't know much about the US one, but I think FERPA is the one which you have to comply with. But then all of them require data to be encrypted and protected, both in storage and transmission. So they depends on which use case you are using. We've got products for covering more than 90% of those use cases. The first one, and that's actually our hottest selling one, is secure workspace. And this is a very powerful one. It's simple, it's file sharing. But the way it works is federated. It's in your environment, not with us. The files are stored. Each file is encrypted and stored for the users who have access to it. So like a data room. And even on a premise, if there's an insider attack, they can't get access to that data. And that's the one which has complied with an NPPI. But that's a really good one, and you save cost. There's no limit on file size. There's no limit on file formats. You can store whatever you want over there. It works, just works. And then the second one is secure files and rights management. Now, rights management is coming up quite big, especially in Europe, and I think, as you mentioned, regulation over here is data protection regulator is still to catch up in the US as much as in Europe and Middle East. But rights management is a big one, and that's coming up left and right. So do you know, as a CISO or a CIO, where your files are, who has access to it, who has accessed it? You know, your files are traveling all over the world via email, via instant messaging. You know, you are sharing the files. You have no control on it. You need to have visibility at any point of time where your files are. And you need that red button. You press the red button, all the access can be, you know, terminated instantly without going to the files. And that's rights management. We've got that in Galaxy using file encryption. Secure email, I don't need to tell you. You've got Zix over here, big time. I don't know how many universities are using them, but they're quite big. But I was mentioning about the big implementation we did for 29,000 users. We replaced Zix. And that's all around usability, how simple it is. It takes care of all the encryption using AI, ensures your emails are protected if they need to be protected. So you comply with the regulations as well. LockChat, military grade messenger. It's WhatsApp. It's easy to explain. It's got all features of WhatsApp, but it's got more security than WhatsApp. If you get a phone, and if you give me a phone, I can extract all your messages from both WhatsApp and Signal, but LockChat encrypts even on the hardware. And it has got full protection from zero-click attacks like Pegasus or Hermit, you know, where they attack your phone without you even going online or anywhere. They come through the network layer. So it protects to that. We have been used at RepMess, which is a NATO program in 2024, and again 2025 we are being used over there. So for command control, it's being used heavily. But that's an instant messaging. Secure sign. Why secure sign? When there is DocuSign, the American big one. But funny enough, you saw the logo before, KPMG. That's a big firm, you know that. They are replacing DocuSign with our solution. Not because we are better than DocuSign, but we are federated, which means your documents are not in the cloud. It gives all capabilities of signing, and you have control over it. I mean, you can have it in cloud as well, but they are stored encrypted in your control. And that's what it does. It uses encryption, again, to control who has access. And even the files, those which are encrypted are stored are encrypted with Galaxy. So that's how it works. And we don't have any limit on how many documents you can sign. You can sign unlimited. So that's cost saving to organizations, because we don't have any cost of running the service. It's with you in your infrastructure. Okay. And the last bit, which we haven't still launched, is Shield. Now this is a very interesting one. So we build these products, but the biggest challenge as a CISO, CIO, or a board member is, how do I know any of these products is solving my problem? How do I know if my data was sensitive and now it's protected? So what Shield does is collects the analytics that what was detected, was it sensitive in nature? It puts a heat map between criticality and exposure, if the data is in the cloud or is sent via email or stored in local network, shared with somebody. Did it contain sensitive data? And after using Galaxy, what has happened? Does it change my heat map? So Shield gives you that complete view centrally, and from a reporting and CIO perspective or CISO perspective, just one sheet tells you your entire posture of data protection, which becomes very easy and interesting. What value we bring? And that's a thing which again changes from industry to industry. So this is more specific to the education side. If I'm talking to military, it'll be different. But from education side, these are the 6 ones. 6th, I've added best pricing from DTE. We've got arrangement. So yeah, thank you, Lens, for that. But if you consider Galaxy for education, according to me, if you ask me, the second is the most important one. And that's a challenge which you all are going to face. Data is increasing on a daily basis. The cost to store that data, passive data, is going to increase. Now, I think you're already aware of the two forms of file storage in either Azure or Amazon, that is S3 or FSX or blob or Azure files. The cost of control data, that's FSX or Azure files, is 5x of how much it would be if you store it in blob or S3. The only problem you can't store in blob or S3 is you don't have control who has access on it because it's flat structure. That's why the cost is also lower, you just store over there. But with Galaxy Key, we have proved that if you encrypt and put it over there, you can still get access-based control, but you reduce your cost 5 times. That's massive saving. So I'll show you some figures afterwards. If you consider 1,000 terabyte storage, it'll be somewhere around $250,000, which gets reduced suddenly to $25,000. So that's cost saving, which is quite big for data which you are not using, which is passive, which is stored, but you need to still store it. You need to probably protect it from generative AI. You want to classify it and store it for future, but you can do that using encryption and rest at peace. Okay, you have saved cost, at the same time you've saved your data. So that's the biggest value I would see for an education sector. Yeah? So let's go with a demo. I'm not as brave as these two gentlemen to give live. I always record it, but I recorded one day before. So I've recorded and it's much easier, and especially when you're showing a product which I said as a boring product, but it's much easier to see if it's recorded well. Yeah. So the first demo that I'm going to show you is a use case where you have to communicate with a third party, and FERPA, which is the education one, which says any sensitive data you are sending, not internal. Internal you still have to, but if you're communicating with a third party, it needs to be protected. Simple as that. And correct me, Chip, he's authority in data protection over here, but he can tell us if that's correct, Chip. So email is a big one. And the maximum, I mean, email is official. People don't want to do anything additional than just sending the email. They write an email and everything should take care of itself. That's the requirement, right? So the use case that I'm going to show you first is I've got, oops, sorry. Going to the next slide. Yeah. So I've got Bob over here, Bob Smith. He's sending an email to a user, external user in Gmail, and like regularly how you would send an email, you compose the email, you write the subject, and when a user is doing this, he's not thinking at that time in his mind that does it contain sensitive data, do I need to encrypt, do I not need to encrypt, because it's you're adding additional decisions to a user, and we all know users make are the biggest failure in cybersecurity. But what this does is you're typing the email, you've written the email, it's still in Outlook, it can be anywhere, Outlook, iOS, Android, any device you can compose the email. There's no change over there. You're composing that email and you just press the send button. As you can see, I've recorded, so I'm a bit faster speaking than how it's gone, but bear with me. So I've pressed the send button and it's gone, right? So that's normal. There's no demo in this. You do this every day. It goes and this email is gone. But what happens is in the background, this email goes to Galaxy's AI server, which detects if it's got sensitive data. If it doesn't have sensitive data, it will send it normally, which you have seen over here. It's come normal, but it has also ensured that the message is at least delivered through TLS. I mean, that is one of the requirement which all the regulations have. So it ensures and puts a signature. It's not clearly seen, but it's saying it has been sent. It's been sent with TLS 1.2 plus. So at least the communication has been secure, even though it doesn't contain sensitive data. So that is another requirement it takes straight away from a user perspective. So what this user has done is replied back, and now he's asking Bob to send him some sensitive information. So Bob gets this email and he says, right, I'm going to respond back to this email, and he's asked for his social security number. I'm sure nobody sends social security number by email, but let's say you can do that now with Galaxy. I've got a document which he's going to reply with. He'll add an attachment. He can put it over here as well, but let's say he wants to send it in a document. And I don't know why I did this, but can you please provide me details for the parking he's asked, but he's asking for the the moment. Let's go with that. And he attaches a document. That document contains a quick view of the document I'll show you. It contains a lot of social security numbers. I just put a dump from where I could just get, I didn't even know what the format of social security number was over here. But he's added that document. And all he does now, again, he does nothing different, just presses send. That's it. No change, no change in habit. But look what happens on the other side. This document in this send items is gone normal because it's gone through his Office 365. But this is external user. He gets the email, and now it's completely encrypted. Ignore the logo over here, Coca-Cola. You can brand whatever you want, but the mail has gone encrypted. He doesn't get the attachment. That's the requirement for regulation. That's a requirement for protecting your data. Forget about regulation. Now when he clicks on that, it connects to a portal, which is where the encrypted email is. It's asking for notification, which gives you the recorded delivery capability, so you can have tracking, who's opened it, who's received it, and he gets the document over here. It's all in encrypted environment. Now when he responds back, again that will go encrypted because you have started an encrypted chain. So that's as simple as a use case where you are encrypting a file, an email, and sending it, and it does the job. But again, we've got multiple models. We've got cloud, hybrid, and on-prem implementations. Like banks who are our customers, they go for on-prem, complete zero cloud connectivity. So when the user clicks on the email, the user actually connects to a portal of the bank. So the document doesn't even leave the perimeter of the bank. So he will see everything online on the bank's Galaxy portal. So that's how email encryption works. Very simple, straightforward. Now before I go ahead to the next one, any questions? Oh, yeah.
One quick thing. If, as we've all done, you accidentally clicked onto the send to somebody instead of C block it, whatever, somebody else, that other person would not have been able to open the attachment. Right? So if you accidentally sent that document to, which we've all done, click, they would not have been able to open.
So if you're using Microsoft, Microsoft E5 also has capability of encryption. Try this. Try to send an email to the wrong person. Don't try it, but if you do that and you want to revoke it, you have to tell the admin to revoke it. But in here, the sender gets a portal and you can just right click and revoke the email straight away. So the user has control, because by the time the user goes to the admin, gets authority, and gets it revoked, you don't need to do all that. You can straight away do from the portal away. So all those capabilities are inbuilt in this, in one platform. Okay.
By the way, anybody else get one of those? Please revoke my last email. What do? You go look at the email to find out what it was that you're supposed to not looking at it.
Again, the other thing which you noticed over here, I have not given any password, I have not given any key, I've just, okay, the user was already authenticated, but the user uses his own authentication into the Galaxy's platform. The end user doesn't have to pay any license fee, and he can open the email. So everything is in the background, the key management, yeah. The next demo is very simple. Again, I say it's simple, but it's file encryption. So I've got Galaxy installed on the desktop as an agent over here, and this is normal. I've got documents over here. I've got this document which had SSN, the same document I'm opening it. But let's say this is a use case where the user is intelligent and he's worried somebody will see this document and somebody can attack my machine and get this information. I can directly right click and secure the file, which encrypts it. It puts it into a different file format, which is GXK file format, which is Galaxy file format, which is encrypted. And for you, it will look like docx.gxk. It looks like a document file. From a user perspective, there's no change. He just double clicks on it, opens it in Word, because it containerizes the document, and it can be any document: Word, Excel, Visio, TXT file. It doesn't matter. That absolutely doesn't matter. It keeps it encrypted, and it's still in the container. So at any point of time, if this machine gets breached, your file is protected. And if I logged out now, I logged out from a user, and if I try to open this file now, it will always challenge me because I can't open. My key access is revoked now. So I'll have to authenticate. My key is then loaded locally, and then I can authenticate. It's got all SSO and all, so it's got AD integration and all that it's got. That's how it works. Very simple, straightforward. That's very powerful. And it's not just one file. You can select entire files, folders, and everything. So you can continue using SharePoint. You can use, doesn't matter, Dropbox or whatever. You still can protect your files. You can encrypt, decrypt files straight away. But that's a just a user experience example. Behind there's a lot of things happening, but it protects. Okay. The third one, I promise that's the last, and I won't bore you, is secure workspace. As I told you, this is our highest selling one, and we never have to make an effort to sell this because it's just simple, straightforward. What it is simple. It's a file sharing platform. It's simple as you've got folders, workspaces over there, you've got users. That's me. So my workspaces, I'm sharing with third party over here, and you can create as many workspaces. But the capability of this is you can create a workspace, which I'm going to do now, and I can give access to a user to have access at user level. So I can say one user has access to only read, write, or the other user can only download or view online. So I can control that access from the workspace itself. So you see, and it's got classification, it's got expiry, so all retention policies as per regulation, GDPR, and all. It's all those features are inbuilt. And I just add the identity of the user who I want to give access to. I control file access rights, and then I can give him manage member rights as well. So if you want to give him access to add other members, you can do that. And I can add as many members I want over here. But then at for the container level, you control. Now, what's different between this and Microsoft's AD is different, because in Microsoft AD is control, your access to the file is controlled by AD. We all know AD can be breached, you get access to the files. In this, each file is encrypted only for the users who are in this container. So if somebody breaches into your network or gets access of these files, they will get garbage. That's all it is. So I've created this workspace called protected data, and for 2 users, and I'm just going to upload a file over here. And by the way, it's got a containerized editor. You don't need to use Microsoft licenses to edit the file. It's got a complete collaborative tool inbuilt. So I've uploaded the file. And this, what I'm showing is the desktop client, but you've got exactly same the web client. So you don't need to install a desktop client. You can still use through web. And then as an end user, what that person would see is you would get an email notification. So I've just created a workspace. And this is all branding can be changed completely to whatever your university requires, or this Galaxy word gets eliminated completely. Now this is what I'm showing you, an experience where a bit more stringent, where you want your end users to register. You don't want users just based on OTP or something like that. So this one which I've shown you experience, but this can be configured. There are situations where you want to communicate with students, but you don't want to have high level of security. Fine, you can lower that, and you can say, look, I want to just invite users without the need to register. You can do that as well. And you see our logo and all colors, everything is completely configurable through the portal. I don't know how many of you all know about Titan HQ, Spam Titan, Arc Titan, archiving. They use our product as well for the email encryption bit. A lot of universities, banks, fire departments, they're already using this platform. But yeah, so he's got access to the document externally. And as simple as that. I mean, there's no complication from a user. It doesn't have to do any additional learning. It's simple, straightforward. That's our key. I'm going to go forward next because I don't want to take this too long. I don't think you can see much over here, but I'll just explain. So all that you saw right now, that was workspace that you saw. But from a university perspective, if you got files, and this is where I'm saying, talking about cost saving. You may have files which are in SharePoint, you may have files which you are using on a day-to-day basis. Now, if you move these files into the cloud, which all are moving now to save cost of ownership, uh, if you use Galaxy, we extract all the user access information automatically, put the files encrypted into the blobs uh, or what is the S3. So that saves you huge cost, and you still have the ability to extract live data. So you may say, look, I need to move data from passive to live because I'm working on this project again. You can still right click and do that, and the interface is same workspace. So at any point of time, the user who has got access or did have access through AD on that data still continues to have that access, but the data is now stored in blob or S3. So that's a big saving. I just put one slide over here just to give you an example. Is we did a the cost estimation between how much would it cost, and the numbers that came up is 24K versus 256K, which is a massive saving considering 1000 terabyte of data. So that's a big angle when you use encryption, which is independent of any network device and application. That's the kind of saving you can achieve. Even if you buy like Galaxy's license, it doesn't matter. It still be cheaper than this. Okay, that's it. I think I don't have much to add to this. This is more of an introduction to our technology and platform. Happy to discuss more if there's anything. Any questions? Yeah.
If you are a user and you've got the key, can you still search across files?
Encrypted? No. If we extract all metadata, we are compromising the security. If it's encrypted, no. But in workspace, you can add tags to data. So you can say this contains specific tag words. You can search on tags. So you can add metadata when you're adding files. But once it's encrypted, no.
So one of the other features from an education perspective, you can now share files with every file is uniquely encrypted, right? So that you can share files with students, encrypted files, by any means. It doesn't matter. Dropbox, chat, whatever. We've completely taken all of the security of all of the sharing things off the equation, right? And of course, kids today use all sorts of things. And you can say this is good for 2 days. Within 2 days, it'll be gone, right? So you can control what time they see it. You can actually control the geography of where they see it, right? So you can do all of that independent of what they, because right now what we've all been doing with cyber, we keep trying to expand the span of the network we're trying to protect. You just take, then you take that off the equation. The other piece is, and I think this is really important at your level, the regulatory side. You also have proof. You have proof who saw the data at any time, because when they decrypt it, you know that they decrypted it. So if somebody stole data, if you gave data to a student, if it somehow showed up somewhere else, you can prove it wasn't you. You can prove it was never decrypted, and you can prove it.
It's got a lot of other features as well, including classification, watermarking. So screen level watermarking is also a feature in rights management. So you can say, okay, if this document is being shown, put a screen watermark. So if somebody takes a snap, you have the way to prove it. I never like that feature because it's annoying to me, but that's part of data protection. That's also inbuilt. So there are a lot of features around data protection which can be configured as per the requirement. There's no like one shoe that fits all. So there's always going to be a different requirement, different use case. But it's not something we have to recode. It's just a matter of configuration how you want it. Yeah. Done?
So Chip, to your point, for the sharing of the data, I just want to make sure I understand this correctly. You only share it through Galaxy,
No.
not. You still share it through.
Once you encrypt the file, that
Okay.
file, every file is uniquely encrypted. I use this every day, same thing. So
Okay.
I encrypt it, and it's on my laptop. I can send it to anybody, anyway. It doesn't matter.
Gotcha.
Right? Now, when it gets to the other side, then they're going to connect to
Yeah.
you for the key, but how that happens doesn't matter either, right?
Right.
So it's completely, no, you do not have to use the Galaxy
Okay.
platform.
It's totally portable.
It's totally portable.
Yeah.
I'm with
The
you.
file itself totally portable.
And this one,
Well, those who are dealing with the privacy, so you mentioned in Connecticut, so I know the Connecticut privacy law inside and out, good. Right? This is really important, because now you can do, they talk about your proof of data dominance, this is, data control. This is proof of control. You can do that. Your lawyers will love you. Let me just say, you're a joke about lawyers, but I deal a lot with lawyers. Your lawyers will love you because you can prove that your actions were aligned.
yeah.
And the chain of custody.
You got pure chain of custody. By the way, if you got anybody doing any, the other piece, sorry, keep it. You talked about the large file. You can replace, what are the company I deal with? They do e-discovery work, if you're familiar with that. They use this entire platform. They replace all of their batch file system using IDT. Right? So you don't need to move it. You don't need whatever capability you are. You can just email it. Like they're emailing like.
It can be terabytes.
Like a terabyte of data.
Doesn't matter.
Terabyte of
Yeah.
data. Right? So that entire cost that you have for your midnight batch processing could be replaced with this, and it's encrypted and secure.
So in UK we have a very big infrastructure company called Nominate, which you know about the
Yeah.
Nominate. Yeah, they manage infrastructure for the government, and that includes a lot of critical infrastructure for utility companies as well. And they're using our solution for exactly the same case where they have to transfer files, and they've actually written. So it's got everything has got an API. So they've written a product that actually uses our API and transfers the file every night through encrypted means and complies everything perfectly. So, yeah. All right, Lance, I'm done. Thank you.